wants to get as close or as far as they want to be, we're going to get started. Can everybody hear okay? All right. Kol omer kra v'amar ma'akra. Kol basar chatzir v'chol chasto ketzitz hasadeh. Yavesh chatzir navel tzitz ki ruach Adonai nashvavo. A voice says, cry out, but I ask, what shall I cry? All flesh is like grass, and all of its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, and the flower fades, when a wind from God blows upon it. Surely, therefore, people are like grass. The grass withers, and the flower fades, but the word of God endures forever. Mizmor LeDavid Adonai roi lo echsar binamteshe yarbitzeni al mei menachot yinhaleni. Nafshi yishoved yancheni v'magle tzedek l'man shemo. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He has me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He guides me on paths of righteousness. He revives my soul for the sake of his glory. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod, they comfort me. You set a table in sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. Your father, your brother, had tickets to everything. He had good tickets to ball games, he had tickets to musicals, he had tickets to concerts, he had tickets or he could get the tickets. Sandy wanted front row seats to life, and to the thrills and the experiences and the action of life. In business, he wanted front row seats to the art of the deal, of doing deals, of striking the bargain, of being successful. He wanted to be in the front row in living life in terms of good restaurants and fine wine and trips, and boats and cars. It's the thrill of the experience. He wanted front row seats to the action. He wanted front row seats to be enthusiastic when he was with people. He liked sharing experiences with people. He took you places as a way of showing you he was your friend. You three grew up often with lots of family around, whether on Hendon Road or in the cottages. In the extended family, he was the cool uncle, the hip uncle, handsome, fun, and he had that motorcycle. He'd go snowblowing, he'd go on limousine rides. He could always cheer others up and give people a great memory. He wanted to be in on the best and the next best thing coming out. When you think of the thrills that you remember of people having fun in the 1970s, you often think of your father, because he had a front row seat. And he drew tremendous satisfaction from his work, from developing real estate. He started in finance, worked with Forest City. He started his own division for multifamily homes. And I know he mentored many people along the way. A number of people have come forward to let you know how important he was to them in his mentoring. He was never the biggest extrovert in the room, but he always wanted everyone to have a good time. He was responsive and giving to certain causes, to the Federation, and to big brothers and big sisters. He was generous. His parents passed relatively early in his life. Alan, I know you shared lots of childhood memories with your brother. You have always been supportive of Sandy, and Sandy was always supportive of you. Of course, when you have front row seats to an event, or to an experience, or to a movie, when you have front row seats to life, you see the good and the exciting, and you also see the challenges, and the frustrations, and the difficulties. That's what happens when you have good seats. You three also witnessed about your father from your seats as he took on business challenges and personal challenges, and ultimately health challenges. And then what you saw wasn't a James Bond movie. You saw a human being working to renegotiate his reality. You saw in real time your dad trying to refashion his relationships. You saw him reach out more to try to have more meaningful relationships with you. Laura, you saw a kind nature and a good heart, and you saw him trying in his own way to reach out in a new way too. Rob, recently you grew to understand that he was really so very proud of you, of your becoming a success in your own chosen field, and of finding your own way in your own place. And Roger, you'd worked with your dad for a period of time. You had spent time with him through the years. You saw the brilliance, you saw the weakness, but you also give great credit to him for having front row seats to see his resilience and his adaptability. You three had front row seats. In fact, I should say you had the privilege of front row seats watching your father do things differently, giving a second effort, and you saw him making some success from that. Rob, you always felt he maintained a confidence in himself, in his ability, in his convictions, that he always had a belief in himself. You all saw in his later years, in his facility, you saw a high regard in which he was held by the people around him. And you saw the charm that had always led him to making new friends throughout his life that continued through the very end of his life. Those who knew him would say that they had never met anyone open to new experiences with such enthusiasm, who tried to live life to the fullest. He lived and he died with a good name. Shmuel ben Yitzhak Be'et. I'm going to call on members of the family. I'm not sure who's going to be the first.
I was sitting next to my dad on a paddle-over plane on the way to the Virgin Islands. I was about 11. It was Christmas holiday. And the plane started to go down. I think the pilot must have said something, and it was going down not in a good way. And I got really scared, and I grabbed my dad, and he, of course, was staring straight ahead in stoic Sandy Krulak style. And I said, Dad, the plane's going down, the plane's going down. He's like, don't worry about it. We're fine. And I was like, what? How do you know? How do you know we're going to be fine? He's like, I'm Sandy Krulak. Fine. That is totally how he lived his life. And in my eyes, my dad was the original manifester. Whether or not you use that word, I do. Everything always worked out for him. In the end, it always worked out for him. Because he really believed it would. No matter what the situation was, no matter what the challenge that lay through him, he would be fine. He could lose his money, he could wrap his car around a tree, he could fall off the side of a building. He was Sandy Krulak. No big deal. His love of big toys was addictive. He drove all of us, all three of us, around on his BMW. When you're allowed to throw three kids on a bike without helmets. And he later bought us dirt bikes. Roger, of course, split his head open several times, as he often did. And I grew up thinking that snowmobiling was a normal thing to do, and the smell of petrol still makes my insides happy. But those early life lessons were really very useful. And fast forward about 25 years, and there isn't a place in the world I can't ride a Vespa on either side of the street. I mean, in India, I can actually navigate a Vespa quite well. And my brother, Rob, can attest, I actually ride a bike better than a car. When I was 16, I had a crush on a guy whose family also had a place in Sarasota, and my dad overheard me talking about him with a friend. So he called his parents, who he of course was friends with, and he invited them boating. And later he said to me, "Hey, I got you a date with Steve Kramer." I was mortified. But that's how he rolled. After we put him in the home, Robbie said to me that he wasn't sure how long his money would last or how long we could afford to keep him there. And I said, just watch. There's going to be some lockbox buried in the backyard, or some investment that he made 30 years ago is going to turn up. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. It's been in the past 10 years, or since I moved to Florida, that I came to really appreciate his subtle brand of kindness. The small gestures that were really very big. I mean, he sent me keys to his apartment when the hurricane was coming, just in case I needed to escape and go somewhere. He bought me a car at an auction when I moved to Florida. And when Jonah was born, he sent me messages about how proud he was of me, and he asked for photos every month. I miss you, Dad. And I know you're back with your buddies, smoking a cigar, your feet up on the side of your boat, laughing and chatting about the good old days.
A lot of common theme in Sandy Krulak. I have gotten hundreds of texts and emails. Very similar stories, but really beautiful ones. So, our father, Sandy Mervyn Krulak, was a man with a lust for life. Sandy, Sam, Pops, Dad, Smurvin had many monikers and many sides of his persona. Trusted friend and mentor to many, avid golfer, boater, international traveler, connoisseur of fine foods. He was a man with a lust for life. He was a member of 4 country clubs, one of the first people to own a cell phone, owner of countless boats, dozens of high-end watches, and luxury automobiles. He lived by the motto I heard growing up many times: he who ties with the most toys wins. And he was fiercely competitive. I have received many calls and emails in the last few days about my dad, with quotes like, "He took me on my first limo ride," or "I went to my one and only Super Bowl with him," or "He was a mentor to me, and I would never be where I am today without all he did for me." Quote, "Sandy turned me on to snowmobiling. I watched my first skin flake at Sandy's house, and that was an integral part of my teenage experience. When I was growing up, Sandy is the only person who would listen to me without judgment, and sometimes gave me good advice. Oh, and that big black BMW motorcycle he had got me started on my obsession with them." One of Sandy's favorite pastimes was fine dining. He always wanted to eat at the best restaurants. He often took us along for the experience. No matter where we traveled, he insisted on the best cuisine available. As young kids on a trip to New York, he took us to Windows on the World. For my 19th birthday, we took a limo to Burns Steakhouse in Tampa, Florida, where we celebrated with him letting me come over for hours, a 400-page wine list to find the perfect wine to match our meal. For my 21st birthday, he took my girlfriend, his girlfriend, and me to New York to see Cats, to eat at Chanterelle restaurant, and for a night on the town at the Limelight, where my underage sister got picked up by a 25-year-old. But that's another story. Sandy was also a sports fanatic throughout his life. He had tickets to the Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Cleveland Nets, the Cleveland Crusaders, not baseball. He also attended every one of my football games from 6th grade through high school. My short football career was the most recorded sports career in history, and I was a lineman. In addition to sports mania, Sanda also loved the performing arts. He had season tickets to the Cleveland Symphony, the Cleveland Ballet, and the Cleveland Playhouse. Although Sandy was a fervent spectator, he also was a participant. He belonged to 4 country clubs: Firestone, Beachmont, Longboat Key Club, and Sandridge. Thank you. He played golf all the time. He loved the game, and like many things in his life, he had a different view on what a successful round was. Most people judge a game by their score, and sometimes how they navigated a specific hazard or made a great putt. Not Sandy. There were 2 measures of success for him: how many golf balls he found in a game of golf and how fast he could play 18 holes. So in a round, when you found 10 great balls and played 18 in less than 3 hours, it was a fantastic round. My oldest friend, Adam Blum, recalls one of Sandy's phrases that sticks with him to this day. Often Sandy would drive off the green and shank the ball into the rough. Then he would hit the second shot perfectly down the fairway into perfect position. He would then raise his hands and the club and exclaim, "Same guy!" I could go on and on. I cannot continue without mentioning his love of the water. From the time I was 5 years old, Sandy always had at least one boat. Later he had one in Cleveland and one in Sarasota, where he spent much of his time. He loved going for cruises with friends, or frankly, anyone who wanted to take a boat ride for lunch, or go fishing, or water skiing. It didn't matter. To him, he was always up for anything. And how can we speak about Sandy Krulak without talking about the disco days? After my mother and father divorced, my father moved into Pine Ridge Apartments in Willoughby, Ohio. That wouldn't be significant unless I describe the apartment itself. Imagine board shag carpeting, smoked glass and chrome furniture, moving geometric sculptures, black vinyl bed coverings, an 8-track stereo with Phoebe Snow playing constantly, and of course, a Betamax. Oh, how can I forget the gold chains, shirt and button just over his belly button, platform dance shoes. Sandy was in his heyday at the ground floor. The Sheraton Beachwood and night moves were his haunts. If you didn't know Sandy and you're hearing all this for the first time, you would ask, how did he have time and all the money to do all this stuff? Sandy, in his own right, was a consummate real estate developer in his own style, with an uncanny ability to recognize the next upcoming veteran community and the ability to convince many banks to loan him the money he needs. He made a good living doing what he understood: for-sale residential development. After leaving 4 Cities, Sandy founded Americon. He built the business in a way that enabled him to live the life that I described. But in every life, a little rain must fall. For my father, there's alcoholism. With all the good times, diverse activities, endless travel, and undying interests I've spoken about, his undying tenacity, creativity, and business, he could not overcome this disease. He lost his girlfriends who were frustrated with his drunkenness. Sandy had numerous car accidents, including wrapping his car around a tree, driving under a semi-truck, and smashing into a light pole. His alcoholism caused him to fall off a deck and to lose sight in one eye. Eventually, he alienated most of his friends, and I was forced to limit his exposure to my children often. Eventually, he lost everything because of his inability to address his disease or even recognize that he had it. This tragedy, however, is not the end of the story. I am as surprised as I am sad that we are standing here today preparing to bury my father, our father. Sandy had countless lives, escaped so many events that would kill almost anybody, but not him. After he lost everything, Sandy moved down to Sarasota, Florida, found a way to buy 3 condominiums in the depths of the financial crisis, remade his life, and rather than belonging to 4 country clubs, boats, fancy cars, and expensive restaurants, Sandy adapted to a small condo in Lakewood Ranch, playing golf at public courses, and eating at bars with substantially large happy hours. Contrary to what you might think, he seemed content in his new life. Then Sandy began to lose his memory. About 3 years ago, it became evident that his cognitive functions were declining. Eventually, he moved to a memory care facility near where he lived in Sarasota. At this point, for the first time in 4 years or more, Sandy stopped drinking. Since there was no alcohol available at the facility, he lost his interest in drinking. He was, however, incredibly engaged with the activities in his new home. He was popular with the staff and the residents. He didn't always know exactly where he was, but he always seemed happy to be involved. He was more loquacious than I ever remember him, and he always had a smile on his face. Once again, he managed to adapt to a new life and embrace it. Several months ago, Sandy contracted COVID and went to the hospital in isolation. This isolation and the inability of his caretakers, who he knew best, to see him and the multiple facilities he ended up in due to the shortage of beds in the area ultimately led to his demise. On the last day, he could speak clearly. I asked him what he was up to as he lay in bed with severe kidney failure and his hands wrapped to stop him from pulling out the IV tubes. He said, "I'm busy, lots of work. Do you have a car? I want to go look at a deal." Sandy, here is to your love of life and all that you took from it. Thank you for all the mentoring and experiences you provided so many. Thank you for exposing us to so many of life's treasures. Kudos to you for your countless lives and endless tenacity.
We can rise now for the memorial prayer. El mole rachamim shochen bamromim hametzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר רקיע מזהירים את נשמת שמואל בן יצחק ועתה שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו אנא בעל הרחמים הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצריך את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו ינוח בשלום המשכבו ונאמר amen. May we remember all of the worthy and the righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. God is now his portion. May he rest in peace. And we all say amen. We're going to lower the Tzadik b'chol derachav hatzur tamim erech apayim u'molei rachamim hamalna v'chusna l'hod vanim ki l'cha adon haslichot v'rachamim Adam mben shana yiyeh olav shanim yichyeh ha'yitron lo v'lo haya yiyeh baruch dayan ha'emet mimit v'chayeh Dayan ha'emet shofei tzedek v'emet baruch dayan ha'emet shekol mishpatat tzedek v'emet nefesh kol chai b'yadecha tzedek malay yiminecha rachamim al tatzon yadecha v'tamar l'malav heref yadecha Lahagid ki ashar Adonai tzuri v'lo avlata bo Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach Yihi shem Adonai mevorach v'hu rachum yipachur avon v'lo yashkit Verbo Lashiva Po, V'lo Ya'ir Kol Hamato. Al Makomo Yavo V'Shalom.
Wearing black ribbons, you're going to hear the word. Stretch them up from the bottom. Up in a vertical way. And repeat after me. Baruch, Atah, Adonai, Eloheinu, Melech, Haolam, Dayan, Amen. Praised are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, the righteous judge. Adonai, Natan, Adonai, Lakach, Yehi Shem, Adonai, Mevorah. God gives, God takes away. Blessed be the name of God. V'yashov ha'afar al ha'aretz k'shehaya, v'haruach tashuv el ha'elohim asher netana. The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the soul returns to God who gave it. Grant strength and comfort to those who are mourning. Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach, Yehi Shem, Adonai Mevorah. We're going to need to create a little bit of space so that we can bring the vault over. recite the mourner's Kaddish. Those who will then want to put dirt on the grave can do so. But first we'll have the Kaddish. We put some dirt directly on the casket before the vault covered the casket, which begins the process. So if the family is with me here under the tent, we'll begin the Kaddish. Is Alan? Alan? Yikadam, Yikadash, Shnei Rabbah, V'Alma, Tikrah, V'Lutei, V'Amrik, Malchutei, V'Hayikon, V'Yomachon, V'Vahayei, V'Chol Beit Yisrael, Ha'agalah, V'Zman Karim, V'Maru, Amen. V'Hei Shnei Rabbah, V'Olam, V'Olam, V'Yomei Omaya, Yifarach, V'Yishtabach, V'Yitma'ar, V'Yitwanan, V'Yitztzei, V'Yitadar, V'Yitaleh, V'Yitalal, Shemei Turisha, B'Richu, Le'elam, Yimkom Berchata, V'Shirata, Tushkachata, V'Nechamata, Da'amirat, V'Yalma, V'Yamaru, Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba, Min Shemaya, V'Chayim, Aleinu, V'Al Kol Yisrael, V'Yamaru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, V'Ramah, V'Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'Al Kol Yisrael, V'Yamaru, Amen. Makomi Nachametem, Toshar, V'Mitzvah, Shlayim. May God comfort you mourning today, together with all others who mourn in the house of Israel and in all the world. And we all say Amen. Those who would like to take part, this is considered an act of respect, a mitzvah, final mitzvah for the deceased to take care of every step of what needs to be taken care of for the protection of a loved one.
Johnny, you want to put a shovel on?
Wrong way.